welcome back to Cooking with Lynn. I'm back in the kitchen and today I am making a soup, one of my favorites, one of my new favorites. It is cabbage roll soup, which sounds kind of weird, doesn't necessarily sound all that appetizing, but if you're familiar with stuffed cabbage, it is a Polish dish and I can't pronounce it, but you can look it up, gołąbki. My mother used to make it all the time. It's a kind of a childhood memory. And I have tried to recreate her stuffed cabbage and it just doesn't come out the same. So I've got sort of putting it in a soup sort of makes it like a deconstructed stuffed cabbage. But anyway, it's got all basically the same ingredients and this is absolutely delicious. So I hope you give it a try. It's soup and stew season. I love making soups and stews. I love the fact that it's all in one pot. I love the warmth and comfort of it. I've been waiting for it to get cold because it's, we've had some weird 70-degree days and I've been waiting for it to get a little bit cool so I could bust out the soup recipes. So I'm going to get started. I'll tell you what you need and then we'll get going. This is kind of quick and nothing to it. All right, so first thing, a lot of people will use ground beef. I prefer ground turkey. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I use a lot of ground turkey. And so it's a soup, you're going to need some broth. I'm going to use chicken broth because I'm using ground turkey. If you're using beef, you can use beef broth, obviously. What else? You need tomato sauce. I have 2 cans of tomato sauce, just the whatever 15-ounce kind size. I have garlic, I have onion, I have celery, and carrots. So that's kind of your standard soup starter is your mirepoix, or your 3 things that add all the flavor to your soup. And I'm going to put some brown sugar to sweeten it up a little. And I've got ½ a cup of rice. You can use orzo or any kind of other noodle or whatever, but stuffed cabbage has meat and rice and herbs and seasoning and stuff like that. So this is mimicking all of that, all of those flavors. And I'm going to put some parsley in there and a bay leaf and all that good stuff. So get started. I'm going to start chopping. I'm going to throw some garlic in here. Get that started. This ended up, it's a fairly new recipe for me, but it's ending up being one of my favorite recipes. It's so good. It's so flavorful. And I got to grab my cabbage, but you don't have to love cabbage. Cabbage doesn't have a real strong taste anyway, so if you don't like it, more of a texture in a soup, you don't really taste it all that much. Probably gonna need another one. So kind of like maybe 2 teaspoons of garlic, but if you like garlic, you can add more. And that's the good thing about soups. You can improvise. You can throw anything in a soup. If you don't have this noodle, add that noodle, add spaghetti, leave the noodles out. You could leave the rice out here if you didn't want to add that in. I'm using jasmine rice. You can use any kind of white rice. Like I said, orzo, noodles. I'm really finding that soups are really hard to mess them up, really. I mean, I don't even know, other than it being flavorless, which it shouldn't be if you put the right stuff in it. Soups are pretty easy. I'm not even going to peel my carrots. I'm just gonna wash them a little bit, and we'll get those in. The onions in. I love all kinds of soup, except lentil. I do not like lentils. Sorry. Just can't do it. I don't know why. You can cut your carrots any way you want. Cut them big, cut them small. Whenever you're making a soup, though, you want to think about what's going to fit on a spoon. So you never would want like giant pieces of anything. You'll be able to pick it up with a spoon. And be able to get a lot of different of the ingredients on your spoon at once, so you can taste it. I just cut the carrot in half and just give it a slice. I like a lot of stuff in my soup. I don't like soups that are mostly broth. I like stuff. I want stuff. I'm gonna cut one more. One more small one. Because it's, for me, when I make soup, it's usually, it's not a side dish or a starter, it's a meal. So where'd that go? All right, anyway, there it is. So I want it to be hearty. I don't want to still be hungry. You know, I eat clear broth when I'm sick. I don't want to just eat clear broth when I'm trying to have a meal. I'm a hungry girl. So the thing about celery too is I put on all that in there, the tops and everything. There's a lot of flavor in there. I just give that a chop. No need to throw that away. Except the little dry pieces. Get those out of there. Luckily, my husband likes soup, and there's only 2 of us, but unfortunately, I have not unlearned how to make big pots of soup. I've always made big pots of soup. I like leftovers. You know, I had a family and 3 kids, and I always made a big pot, and so that's what I do. Turn that a little bit. Yeah, I don't know how to make a small pot of soup. And why not? If you're going to cut stuff, cut more and then have some leftovers. Or share it with somebody, or, you know, whatever. Bring some to work. If it's something you like, you won't mind eating it a couple days in a row, hopefully. Make your coworkers eat it. Sometimes I do that. All right, we're almost done chopping. Now we're going to get going, and it's going to go real fast from here. And, you know, at the supermarket now, you can buy stuff chopped up already. Save yourself some time. You can throw other vegetables in here, just like any other soup. Throw whatever you want in it. And what do you like? Throw it in the soup. Stews are a little different because typically you're going to use a thickener. You're going to thicken the broth. And that's, you know, that's not that hard, but, you know, you don't want to over thicken. You don't want a stew to be soupy. If you know how to make a chicken stew, you can make chicken pot pie with that. All right, so towel. Well, I'll use my apron. That's what it's for. So I'm going to get going. I'm going to get that all sauteed. Now, there's other ways of doing this too. You can just put the broth in and just let the veggies cook in there. But I like to saute my veggies because they get colorful, they get caramelized, and color equals flavor. And I never throw my garlic in right away because if that burns, it gets bitter and nobody likes that. So let's get this all in here. And get half of it on the stove. That's my favorite burner. You know you're an adult when you have a favorite burner. And or favorite spatula. What's actually the fastest burner? This one's the power burner, but it's not as good as that burner, so I don't know. So I end up dragging half the food across here, and half of it ends up on the stove, and the rest of it ends up in the crack between. What are you going to do? That is like, this is home cooking, and let's see if I can get those little things out. So I'll make a mess. My stove always looks like a mess. There. So once you get that in there, I get some salt down in there. And you're like, oh my God, that's a lot of salt. No, it's not. Because it's a big pot. Pepper. Now I'm going to go grab my cabbage while that's doing its thing. And like I said, I could have just thrown my ground meat in there and sauteed that, and then just thrown everything else in there and just let it go, and that would have been okay too. But I like the flavor you get from sauteing your veggies ahead of time. So I'm going to grab my cabbage. What else? Still here. All right, my little secret weapon for this other soup that I make. It's we call it intravenous de Milo. It's a take on like those Italian wedding soup. It's not really, but anyway, it's a bunch of cans. It's all cans, canned vegetables and canned tomatoes and broth. And so it kind of can be a little bit bland. So what I started doing is adding this red curry paste, and it just adds, it's a teeny bit spicy, but it just adds some depth of flavor. So I've been throwing that in my soup lately. Not necessarily like in a chicken soup, but in like a tomato-based soup. So while that's going, I'm going to cut up my cabbage. This is a really big head of cabbage. I'm definitely not going to use it all. Really big. So if you were going to, look at that. Isn't that pretty? If you're going to stuff cabbage, I'm sure you could find tons of recipes. You would want these outer leaves, and we cook them a little bit, and then you would roll the meat and rice mixture up in that. And that is stuffed cabbage. And my mom was the best at it, and I don't know, I can't seem to get it as good as hers. Moms have a magic touch, and sometimes you just can't repeat their recipes. And unfortunately, she's not here to help me. This is very dense, this particular cabbage, so I'm going to cut it, and then when I get it, put it in there, I'm going to kind of try to separate it a little bit, because I don't, like I said, you want everything to fit on the spoon. You don't want big hunking pieces of cabbage in your soup. I mean, it is going to wilt down and everything, but so that's looking good. You can see it. It would be good if you could see it. And everything seems to, at least on my laptop, look a little, like this is red. It looks orange there, but I don't know. Anyway, it's not the Food Network. We get our garlic in there. And then I'm going to get my ground turkey in, and I'll get my liquids in, and then we'll drop everything. And yeah, you'll see how easy it comes together. Let's mix that up. I guess you could use other ground meats, whatever you like. That's probably, so you see, when I say, you see the caramelization, maybe, on the side there. Color is flavor. Can you see that? Yeah. I'm barefoot. Okay. And that part of my kitchen is messy. Pay no attention to the dishes in the sink. Okay. We'll get our ground meat in here. If you are not comfortable doing it this way, you can take the veggies out and then do the meat and then come back. This is perfectly fine. Done it this way a million times. It's all going to cook. As long as your meat gets cooked through before you start adding the rest of the stuff. We're just going to wait for that to cook through. Salt that. You got to salt every. Whoa. Try not to fall. No falling and cooking. So that was more than a pound of meat. Like I said, I like it chunky and full of stuff and hearty and with a lot of meat. And I love ground turkey. Some people just can't get used to it. I make so many things with ground turkey. I hardly ever buy ground beef anymore. And it's better for you, and I love it. I could eat it every day. A lot of protein and low fat. And you could do ground chicken too if you don't like the ground turkey. It's always on sale. It's a lot more affordable than ground beef. There's another bonus. Turn that down. Cooking nice and fast. Put the pot on, and my husband and I are going to go for a walk. It's chilly out, so we'll go for a walk and come home and have a nice hot bowl of soup. So We'll warm this back up, and I'm turning on this other burner by mistake. Okay, looks like we're all brown. Just make sure every little bit of it is no more pink. Alright, now we can start adding our other stuff. Just kind of dump everything in. So like I said, I'm going to separate the leaves a bit, just so they don't, I mean, they'll separate themselves as it simmers, but you know, just to give it a head start. I'm going to turn it down a little. We don't want to burn anything. This is definitely a big head of cabbage, so I am not going to use it all. But cabbage is good roasted in the oven. Delicious. Give it a try. It's not just for coleslaw. This isn't really going to cook down until I get my liquids in, and that looks like a ton of cabbage. I know it does, but trust the process. It is going to cook down. So I'm going to get my broth in there, about 3 cups, but I always just eyeball it. I'm going to need that to be pretty much covered. And I'm going to I need to make sure that there's enough liquid so that when I put the rice in there, there's enough liquid for the rice to absorb, and you're not just left with a stew. Basically, you want some broth. Come on. All right, so that's more than 3 cups. That's all right. And obviously, you can pare this recipe down if you just want to make it for a couple people and you don't want to have a whole giant pot. My head's cut off. I'm even going to put more. All right, because then I'm going to put some tomato sauce, and that's going to add to it more. So I'm not going to put the rice in until it starts boiling. Typically how you would cook rice is once your liquid is boiling. I know people who do it differently. So the other thing too is you could put diced tomatoes in here if you wanted to. I don't put diced tomatoes, I just put tomato sauce. Any kind you like. And I'm not going to add my brown sugar or the rice until this really starts to get kind of cooked down, and then because I need some room to be able to stir it around. That's a lot of stuff. It looks a little crazy right now, but it's all good. All right, so I'm going to throw in a couple bay leaves. Because bay leaves are whole, you never really want to add them to something that's going to be a quick cook. It's more like something that is going to sit for a while and simmer, because it takes a while for the flavor of the bay leaf to come out. So I'm just going to stick a couple in there. A lot of soups call for bay leaves. Parsley will go on after. Did I forget anything? I don't think I did. Actually, I think I can stir my brown sugar in now. I've got 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. And that's just to counteract all that acidity from the tomatoes. And that, my friends, is it, except for the rice. So I'm going to let that simmer down, and I'll show you what it looks like. I'll get the rice in there, and we'll stir it all up, and we'll taste it. And we're going to have that for dinner. It's going to be delicious. I can't wait. Perfect after a cold evening walk. So I'll see you in a little bit. This will be looking a little bit different, and so stick with me. All right, so we're at a full boil here. Cabbage is wilting down real good. Starting to see it cooking and getting smaller, because it did look like a lot. Splattering everywhere, of course. So I'm at the point where I can add my rice. And again, whatever you want to add, noodles, rice, whatever. and as much or as little as you want, or not at all. I'm adding a half a cup, and even as I'm doing that, I'm questioning, should I add more? But you can always add more later. If you add too much rice, you can add more liquid. If you add too much liquid, you can add more rice. I'm reserving some broth in case, and I'm going to add my little, just a little bit of my little secret weapon here, just for some depth of flavor. You don't need much. Add a little bit of warmth. I don't like things that are super spicy, so if you're worried about that, trust me, this is not, I mean, if you put a ton, it would be probably pretty spicy, but I only put a little. And now everything's going to cook down. I'm going to turn it down because I don't want it to burn. Get it down to a simmer. I'm going to let it simmer for a little while, and then we'll come back and check it out. Alright, I'm going to add some fresh parsley, and we'll see what it looks like when it's all done. Alright, stick with me. Alright, before I head out for my walk, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to taste it for seasoning, and I'm going to throw my parsley in, and then I'm going to just let it simmer away, and then when I come back, it'll be ready to eat. It takes the rice a little bit of time too, so you don't want to rush it. Soups are always better when they've been simmering for a while, or when they're next day, even better. So this is probably really hot. It does not need salt, and it doesn't need sugar. Pretty darn good. All right, I'll throw the parsley in. Always need a little freshness, a little green. I'm gonna turn it way down, make sure it's just simmering. I don't want it to bubble over or burn on the bottom or whatever. So I have parsley on my face now. Okay, gonna go out for a walk. It's cold out there. Come back and we'll look at it and we'll see what it looks like, and we'll taste it together. Too bad you can't taste it, but you're gonna have to make it for yourself. All right, we got back from our walk and it's awfully chilly out there, so it's time to have some soup for dinner. You can see it's bubbling away again. Everything's cooked through, and the cabbage cooked down, and it's going to be yummy. So I'm going to ladle that for us. And we're going to, if you know me, you know that it's a must cheese situation. Put cheese on it. Put shredded cheese, no cheese. Hand this over to hubby. Order up. All right, this is couch food. This will be eaten in front of the TV, relaxing for the evening, and warming up with my soup. So I hope you try it. I'm coming back in December with a Christmas, what did I call it? Christmas breakfast bake. Like a Christmas, it's not a Christmas casserole, it's a breakfast casserole, but I'm calling it that because it's a good thing to do on Christmas Eve, get it all ready, and then Christmas morning, pop it in the oven, and have it all ready for everybody after they open their gifts. Or, you know, anytime, any kind of brunch or even dinner. So I hope you check that out. That's in mid-December, and I hope to see you then. Check out all the other good things the library's doing, and I will see you soon.